Right, welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, you probably read the title and thought, blasphemy. They're remaking Scarface. How dare they remake the remake? Oh, sorry, what? Yeah, Scarface, 1980, is actually a remake of a 1930s film. And although the 1980s one is absolutely amazing, I've done a review of it, I'll leave it linked above. You know, it is a remake. And I guess it's one of the prime examples of when a remaked or a remade film story is probably better, or at least equal to, or has at least risen to prominence, much like the original did. I really, really like the 1980s one. It's one of my favourite films of all time. I think it tells the ultimate rise and fall of a man, and you can pick it apart in bits and pieces, but I do actually think it's a really, really clever film. However, a remake has been brewing for a really long time. A really, really, really long time. And we're finally getting some word on it, some movement, which is what we're going to see a lot of now during this whole, pandemic situation that we're in. Just because a lot of this stuff is, it's writer-based, it's contracts, it's meetings, and you can do all of this now, whereas you can't actually start production. So they're shifting around their priorities. They're moving to future stuff now rather than what they were doing, and so on and so forth, which makes sense. But here we go. So Joel Coen and Ethan Coen wrote the latest version of the script. So that's pretty good, isn't it? But the director is Call Me By Your Names, Luca Guadagnino? Yeah, I've butchered that. But he's been asked to direct by Universal. So it is a Universal Pictures film, and they're in a weird spot at the moment, aren't they? They kind of make some money, they kind of lose some money. They're teetering on the brink, but this could be such a winner for them, because does it have to have a big budget? No, it doesn't have to have a big budget at all. It has to be that core concept, that core story, which they had. And it just has to be executed very, very well. Now, I think this could be a winner. And I know a lot of people, you say Scarface, remake, reboot, and people just don't want to hear it. And I get that. I do get it. But like I say, Scarface 1983 is just a great example of when a remake is good, is fantastic. And the only reason you don't want to see it remade is because a remake was so good. So think about that for 1 second. Now, Howard Hawks directed the original, which was a Chicago set Scarface in 1932, which was then reimagined by Brian De Palma in 1983, with a story set in the Miami drug trade that famously starred Al Pacino in the lead role of Tony Montana. I'm not going to do that again. The new version will be set in LA. Now, obviously, so there's some key pointers here about the script and kind of what they're looking to do. Which I think will be interesting, because we need to kind of compare each and every single one and kind of where they're going with it. So Joel Coen and Ethan Coen wrote the latest version of the script, with earlier drafts by Gareth Donat Alcocer, Jonathan Herman, and Paul Atanasio. Scarface will be produced by Dylan Clark for his Dylan Clark Productions. Scott Stuber will executive produce alongside Marco Marabito. And Dylan Clark Productions Senior VP Brian Williams will also executive produce. Jay Polidoro and Lexi Barter will oversee the project for Universal. So it says that the long gestating project has seen several filmmakers circling the director's chair, including David Ayer and Antoine Fuqua. Guadagnino most recently wrote and directed blah blah blah. Now, I actually saw this, I think I saw this initially on Variety, and they said that they would definitely still be following the immigrant sort of story that was focused in this movie, in the actual story, the original, which was carried over into Tony Montana's one as well. Now, this one will be set in Los Angeles, and I worry about this for a few reasons. Now, I think what was so good about... Let's just compare, 1983's one, right? Let's talk about Al Pacino's Tony Montana. I think what was so good about that was yes, I mean, it was a hot topic at the time, wasn't it? Right? What was, I guess, kind of bigoted or whatever you want to call it, the kind of banana boats and things like that, coming on over Cuba. There was a lot of... it was kind of high profile. Now, the thing about that is, what would they do now with immigrants in Los Angeles, and if that's the center of the story? You know, what are they going to do? Is it going to be Mexicans? Again, my understanding of the States is very rudimentary, so I'm sure there'll be people that will drop in here and probably call me out and say I'm wrong. However, I do worry that, like, I'm all for this, FYI, I'm absolutely all for this, but I do worry that there's the potential for this to fall into a situation of Orange Man bad. And I think anyone could see this, right? Absolutely anyone could see this. Luca, the guy that they've tapped to direct this, did the Call Me By Your Name film. Now, I don't have any issues with the film at all, but if we're looking at his filmography and kind of what he does, there's a representative focus, I guess you could say, which is absolutely fine. Again, there's no issue with that remotely. But will there be an injection of that into a story where it's probably not too much of what should be the focus? Because when you're looking at Tony Montana and everything within that, you're not looking at him necessarily as a villain specifically. Like, you do genuinely feel sorry for the character at times. Obviously, through quite, infamous measures, this man rises to power and things like that. But you're not watching him going, oh, this is, he's trying to lay down the law in the USA, and he's doing this, that, and oh, he's terrible this. You're watching a man, a gangster, rise and fall. But there's no overt social politics involved, or, well, in fact, politics involved. There are the comments on Cuba, but the take home from the story is never that, is it? You don't think about Scarface and think, oh, it's all to do with socialism and communism and Cuba and Castro. That's not what you think. So I worry that it being set in Los Angeles, and I would imagine it be set in modern day, that there is the potential to go the Orange Man bad route with immigrants, Mexicans potentially. I don't know, Latin Americans, whatever is PC these days. So I do worry. However, Joel and Ethan Coen, good writers. I mean, what fantastic writers to have on board. I wouldn't say that they're exactly terrible, are they? And I do feel like that is probably going to be the saving grace. And hopefully, with a bit of luck, although it's set in Los Angeles, it could be set in the past. There's nothing to say that they could do LA in the past. Maybe even the 50s or something like that, as Hollywood's beginning to rise up. Maybe that could be an interesting take on it. But anyway, I thought I'd share this and thought I'd kind of delve into my thoughts on it, my worries and concerns. And I'd love to hear whether any of you guys are for this and against it, because again, it's a remake of a remake. Or whether you share any of my concerns. Like I say, so many of these projects now, unfortunately, do have that just ever such a slight political tinge. And I think it's really important to separate what what was in the story of Scarface, the 1983 one, and what the take home is, what we now think of it as. You don't sit there and think it's all to do with Castro and socialism, communism and things like that. You don't even sit there and think it's to do with, well, I don't know, Cubans being blown up and any of this kind of nonsense. It's not. That's not the focus. It's Tony Montana, that rise and fall. That's the story, and hopefully that doesn't get lost in this new one. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Let me know down below. Also, guys, just to let you all know, I am making a film, and I just want to let you all know about the merchandise, because a lot of people seem to have, well, they don't know about it, basically. I've got merchandise. I've got a Teespring store underneath every video, but in the description box specifically is a Teespring store for Blackfield's My Film. So if you want to support the film, but you want something for it rather than just the GoFundMe, which is also linked down below in the description box, check out the merchandise link. There's some really cool, There's posters which are epic. The quality of those posters is actually amazing. I myself will be getting my own one because I had a few tweeted to me. Side note, follow me on Twitter at Missed Reviews. But the quality is just fantastic. So I'll be buying my own one. But check them out. You might like them. And hopefully you'll support me on my creative endeavour to not do a reboot or a remake, something completely original. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I've been Mr. H. Take care.